Good evening and welcome, everyone. My name is Dirk, and I'll be the moderator tonight. Thank you for joining us for this interactive Dial-In with Dean. And part of the interactive feature of this call is if you're on the phone with us, you're able to vote or give us information, and we're going to ask a poll question right now. This poll question is a very important way for us to learn what it is that you think is important. So our first poll question of the night: what should be the first item of business for the 117th Congress? If you believe health care, please press 1. If you believe COVID relief for families and businesses, please press 2. If you think climate action, press 3. Government reform, press 4. If you feel it should be something else, please press 5. So our first interactive poll question of the evening: what should be the first item of business for the 117th Congress? If you think healthcare, please press 1. COVID relief for families and businesses, please press 2. Climate action, press 3. Government reform, press 4. Something else, please press 5. Now, as noted, this is an interactive call. If you have a question that you would like to ask live on tonight's call, please press star 3 on your telephone keypad, or if you're joining us online, you can enter your name and question below the streaming player. You can also join the Congressman's e-newsletter by pressing star 6 on your telephone keypad. Again, if you have a question you'd like to ask live on this call tonight, please press star 3. If you'd like to join the Congressman's e-newsletter, please press star 6. We'll begin our call in earnest in just a few moments. Please stand by.
Access Live event is currently in music hold and will start momentarily. If you would like to ask a question during the event, press star 3 on your telephone keypad at any time. Access Live event is currently in music hold and will start momentarily. If you would like to ask a question during the event, press star 3 on your telephone keypad at any time. Access Live event is currently in music hold and will start momentarily. If you would like to ask a question during the event, press star 3 on your telephone keypad at any time. Access Live event is currently in music hold and will start momentarily. If you would like to ask a question during the event, press star 3 on your telephone keypad at any time. Access Live event is currently in music hold and will start momentarily. If you would like to ask a question during the event, press star 3 on your telephone keypad at any time. The Access Live event is currently in music hold and will start momentarily. If you would like to ask a question during the event, press star 3 on your telephone keypad at any time.
Good evening and welcome, everyone. My name is Dirk, and I'll be the moderator tonight. Thank you for joining our live, interactive Dial-In with Dean. Congressman Phillips would love to hear from you, so we'll be taking as many questions as possible live during this call. If you have a question for the Congressman, please press star 3 on your telephone keypad at any time, and you'll be placed in line to speak with a member of our staff. They'll take down your name and the city you're calling from. The next time you hear your name, you'll be live with Representative Phillips. We do receive a lot of questions on these live events, so if we're not able to address your question, please stay on the line and you'll be able to leave a voicemail at the end of this event. Again, if you have any questions at any time tonight, please press star 3 on your telephone keypad. Or, if you're joining us online, simply type your name and question below the streaming player. If you'd like to stay in touch with the Congressman by joining his email newsletter, it's very simple to do tonight. All you need to do is press star 6 on your telephone keypad. Again, star 3 if you have a question you'd like to ask, star 6 if you'd like to join the e-newsletter. Now, we all know that representation begins with listening, so we'd like to hear from you. We're going to ask a few poll questions tonight, and our first poll question is one you can answer with your keypad, or if you're online, you can vote by selecting your response below the streaming player. So the poll question we're looking for your input on right now: what should be the first item of business for the 117th Congress? If you believe it's health care, please press 1. COVID relief for families and businesses, press 2. Climate action, press 3. Government reform, press 4. Something else, press 5. Again, our first poll question of the evening: what should be the first item of business for the 117th Congress? If you think it's health care, please press 1. COVID relief for families and businesses, press 2. Climate action, press 3. Government reform, press 4. And something else, please press 5. I see on my console that the votes are coming in. Thank you, everyone, for participating. And now it's time to turn the call over to Representative Phillips for his opening remarks. Congressman, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Dirk, and good evening, everybody. It's Representative Dean Phillips, and it looks like we have almost 5,000 of you on tonight's call, and I want to thank you for taking the time to join us. And most importantly, I hope you and yours are doing okay. I know how difficult these days are. I wish you all health and endurance. The good news is there's light at the end of the tunnel, and we are going to get through this. We're going to do it together, and I've never been so proud to be a Minnesotan and so grateful to represent all of you. And as Dirk said, I do believe that representation begins with listening, and there's a lot to talk about tonight, but I have a lot to listen to tonight, and I want to make my remarks rather brief and get to your questions as soon as we can. So if you have a question, you can press star 3 on your phone at any time. And if you want to sign up for our updates on the work that I'm doing in Washington and in Minnesota, you can press star 6. Again, star 3 for questions and star 6 for our updates. And a member of my team would be thrilled to get you set up. As many of you know, I'm a lifelong Minnesotan, was raised in the very community that I now represent. I'm a small business owner, and of course, your representative in the United States House of Representatives. Since I became your congressman a little less than 2 years ago, I have introduced 30 bills so far. I've co-sponsored 540 bills, all of which with a singular mission to make life better for Minnesotans, for the families in Minnesota, workers, businesses throughout our entire country. And this summer, my first bill that I authored was signed into law by President Trump. It was called the PPP Flexibility Act, generated in no small part because of many of you who are on the phone tonight, small business owners who wish to take advantage of the PPP program to keep the lights on, keep your employees paid. Many of you recognized early on that it was a good start, but not nearly flexible enough to serve needs. So I wrote a bill with my Republican colleague Chip Roy, and it passed. The House 417-1 unanimously through the Senate, and President Trump signed it into law. And I think the bill helped save thousands of businesses, many of them right here in the 3rd District, and hundreds of thousands of jobs around the country. And again, best of all, it was done in a bipartisan fashion. I'm the 27th most bipartisan member of Congress. My partner on that bill, Republican Chip Roy from Texas, it was the 433rd most bipartisan member of Congress. But I've learned and long believed that friendships can be made no matter political differences. And of course, it's our responsibility and obligation to get good work done. And this is a good example of that. And that's why I'm also a proud member of the Problem Solvers Caucus, as many of you know. The best hour of the week that I spend in Washington, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here momentarily. I was also just awarded the Jefferson Hamilton Award by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is their award for bipartisanship. I've always believed that Democrats and Republicans have to return to placing people over partisanship. It's one of the main reasons I ran for Congress in the first place, and especially right now during the most difficult days that our country has faced in our lifetime. It is a responsibility to work together. I know the pandemic has brought unimaginable hardship to so many of you and your families and your businesses, but rest assured, I am doing everything I can. I will not rest, and my mission will continue to get us through this as healthy, economically sound, and prepared for a bright future as humanly possible. That's why yesterday, as some of you may have read in the paper or seen online, I was part of a small group of senators and representatives from around the country that have worked together for many weeks, including over the Thanksgiving holiday, to come up with an emergency COVID relief package that would give Minnesotans and Americans throughout the country much needed, long overdue relief before the holidays. I recognize that the need is great, the time is short, and the urgency is surely real. It is a bipartisan plan, a bicameral plan, meaning senators and members of the House working together. And of course, like most things that come out of Washington, it is not perfect. This is not a place where perfection should be pursued because it's impossible. Compromise is required. But I'll tell you, my friends, that inaction is not an option. So we put together a $908 billion proposition designed to get us through the next number of weeks and improve the chances for our country, our economy, our families, our schools, our hospitals, our cities and states to emerge from this well prepared for the future. The best news is some of you may have heard just in the last couple hours that Speaker Pelosi, Leader Schumer, and President-elect Biden all have come out endorsing the framework that we presented yesterday as the basis for what we hope and expect will be an expeditious and successful discussion over the next couple of days. My expectation and demand, I should say, is that we pass something before the Christmas holiday. I've made that position clear to the Speaker, to my friends in the Senate and here in the House, and that is my mandate. Most of all, thank you once again for joining tonight. I always welcome your perspectives, your ideas, your questions, even your criticisms. It's what makes me a better representative, and I wish nothing but health, happiness, and prosperity for everybody. So just a reminder, if you want to ask me a question over the course of this 1 hour call, just press *3. And if you want to sign up for our e-newsletter so you can keep tabs on what we're doing, press *6. And anytime you might need information tonight or in the future, you can always go to our website at phillips.house.com. .gov. And my team and I will always be here for you. So thanks, everybody, and I would love to turn it over to your questions and have a nice conversation tonight. Dirk?
Thank you very much, Congressman. And we'll start with an online question. It was submitted by Berndalyn Foster, and she asks, what is being done to help African-American small businesses impacted by COVID-19 during this new wave or rise in coronavirus cases?
Thank you for the question. The truth is, the facts indicate that COVID and the pandemic itself has been disproportionately harmful to our communities of color in the United States, both the health and welfare and well-being of our communities of color, and in particular, disproportionately affected small businesses owned by both females and our minority community. And that is, to me, a responsibility of all of us to do some soul searching and, most importantly, provide support. And when I say provide support, I mean for everybody in the country who is struggling and businesses. But in particular, to answer the question how we can support African-American-owned businesses, I'm actually the author of a bill called the New Business Preservation Act that would provide startup capital to entrepreneurs in the heartland, to those minority-owned businesses that have been so long denied access to capital, and also women-owned businesses that often find it too difficult to attract capital. I'm a business person. It's my experience. I recognize to generate prosperity, to generate hopefulness and possibility, people need the capital to pursue their dreams. And not everybody in our country is as blessed to access it. So I do believe there are ways at the federal level and at the state level to better afford capital to help businesses create jobs and give everybody a chance to succeed. So it is on my mind. I'm working on that both in Minnesota and here in Washington. And I believe as we move through the coming weeks and months, and as President-elect Biden moves into the White House, that we'll see some more momentum behind that. And the good news is there's a lot of bipartisan support for doing so. So that's on my mind, and I do appreciate the question.
All right. Our next question comes from Angela Wood, who joins us from Brooklyn Park. Angela, welcome to the call. You are live with Congressman Phillips. Go ahead with your question.
Hi, Dean. I wanted to know if you could sign into the. I've been trying to see if you could have us. If you could help us with the unemployment for people that are don't get the have much of the since some of them don't have a job right now, and if they could if you could support that bill. We were just trying to figure out if you could do that for people that don't have the jobs right now. So I just want to know if you could help support that. We would appreciate it. That's what I've been wanting to know.
Yes, Angela. The answer is absolutely and yes. And I can share with you that just yesterday in the bipartisan COVID emergency relief framework that we introduced, that I helped develop, we have allocated $180 billion to provide 4 months more of amplified unemployment support to all of those who've been displaced because of COVID. So it is one of our foremost responsibilities. It is something on which Democrats and Republicans agree. The challenge, of course, has been to determine how much that amplified benefit would be per week. Right now, the compromise has been $300 in additional unemployment support from the federal government to amplify the state benefits. So yes, by all means, it is on our mind and we recognize the urgency. So keep the faith.
All right, our next caller joining us is Carl Nimitz from Bloomington. Carl, you're live with Congressman Phillips. Go ahead, sir.
Hello, Congressman Phillips. First of all, thank you for having us, and I hope you had a good, safe Thanksgiving. I would like to congratulate the Biden-Harris team for their hard work and victory. I'm going to probably say something that's going to get me booed out of the room, but yes, I am a Trump supporter, but I'm also an American citizen who supports every president that is in charge. So with that being said, and I've already asked this question, is that we need unity, and we do not need to have people saying we need to reteach Trump supporters. We need to do this. No, we need to get the work done. We need to work together. And like you said, you are very good at working across the aisle, which is very good to hear. I like that idea too, because we can have our differences but still have what we need. How are we, number one, going to get the adults in the room? I'm talking about the Congress, the senators. I don't even have to say our president because Trump will be leaving soon. But how are we going to get all the people in leadership to be on the page that if you were a Trump supporter, welcome to America, and let's work together, but not to be punished. And then for the people on the other side, not to make any incendiary or any caustic remarks towards the Democrats. We are Americans. I don't care about the parties at this point. We have many things, like you said, that need to get done. How are we going to get to it? In other words, if we don't get our heads in the game, our feet go in the toilet.
Carl,
That's it.
I couldn't say it better, and nothing you said will get you thrown off this call. Just the opposite. I wish more in our country could hear what you just said moments ago. Because to your point, no matter for which party we voted, which candidate, our political perspectives, our ideologies, if we don't start reconciling the fact that we're all Americans and start unifying and working together and at least respecting one another, if not loving one another, we can surely respect one another. If we don't do that, we are dishonoring our founders' intentions and, frankly, shaming our entire country. And as you pointed out, working together is all I know. The time I spend with my colleagues, my brothers and sisters on the Problem Solvers Caucus, is the best time of my week. In fact, my dear friend and colleague, Republican Dusty Johnson from South Dakota, he and I essentially led the working group that has come up with 2 COVID relief plans. And, as most of you on the call would agree, it takes some tension. We often tend to spend time with, live with, eat with, talk with those who think the same. And some of the best moments I've experienced in Congress are not with those who see things the same way, rather those who've had different life experiences and have different perspectives and different policy ideas. That's really, to me, what makes America great, is celebrating our differences, acknowledging them, and being respectful about them. The good news is, I want you all to know, this is really important. The people that you see the most on TV here in Washington, from Washington, the people that you see on Twitter, the people who are perhaps best known in politics, they often are not the ones getting a lot of the work done in Washington. There are a lot of good people here from all around the country that have created thoughtful friendships and professional relationships that have the country's best interests in mind and work well together. It just so happens that the ones doing that kind of work don't often have the big Twitter followings and social media followings and are not on television every night. So I'm going to keep working on those relationships. When I go to Washington, when I put my voting card in the machine and cast votes for our district, I do so as a representative, not as a Democrat, not as a party partisan, but as someone who is trying to put the country first, put the people I represent first, and most importantly, leaving a legacy of respect. And to the extent that the thousands of you on this call wish to join me in that effort, I think the 3rd District in Minnesota can show the rest of the country how to do that. So thank you very much for your question, sir. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm grateful that you took the time to be on the call tonight.
Thank you very much, Congressman. So there's a couple of things that I want to remind everyone about. If you would like to join the Congressman's e-newsletter, all you need to do is press *6 on your telephone keypad right now. Again, *6 to join the Congressman's e-newsletter. If you are listening to this conversation through the website, you can simply type your name and question below the streaming player. You can also submit questions through Facebook, which is where our next question comes from. Carl asks, as a healthcare worker, do we have the funding and logistics to get the vaccine to healthcare workers, seniors, and our most vulnerable?
Well, Carl, thank you for the question. When I mentioned there's light at the end of the tunnel at the beginning of this call, of course, I was referring to the fact that there is great evidence that the vaccines that have been under development and are close to being introduced are working with great efficacy, some exceeding 90%. And of course, now our attention turns to the most important element, which is getting them distributed throughout the country, and how to triage that, how to identify who should get them first. And of course, to your point, healthcare workers should be the first in line to get those. And to all of you, to you teachers on the phone tonight, to you first responders, to those of you who work in the healthcare field, caregiving field, I want you to all know how I think of you every single day, because I cannot imagine how difficult your lives are, how much you are making, how much sacrifices you're making for you and your families, for all of us. And I just want to thank you. To your question specifically, the distribution element for the vaccines is being led by a very senior military official who has a professional experience in logistics. So I do have confidence in the distribution plan. If any of you saw 60 Minutes about a month ago, they did a good profile on that plan, and it does give me confidence that we will effectively distribute it. The bill, the framework that I helped create and we introduced yesterday here in Washington, provides many billions of dollars to distribute the vaccine throughout the entire country. It's going to be a Herculean effort. It is going to begin as soon as 2 to 3 weeks from now. And at the end of the day, it is a responsibility of all of those here in government in Washington to ensure that the logistics plan works, that it's properly resourced, that the people who need it most get it first, and that we provide the support and money necessary to do so expeditiously and hopefully at no cost to anybody. And I believe that's something that President-elect Biden considers of great importance. So it is something I'm looking into every single day, and rest assured, I also should speak to the fact that, I believe the vaccines will be safe, they will be effective, and none will be released into our country if they are not. I'm sure there might be some concern about that, but I want you all to know that I have faith in that. So thank you for the question, Carl, and the good news is that should begin here in the next 3 weeks or so.
All right, our next question comes from Daniel Aspuro, who joins us now live on the phone. Daniel, go ahead with your question, please.
Hey there. So I work for a union HVAC company out here in Bloomington. I want to thank you for supporting small businesses and for the work you do to support our bosses. However, like my friends who work in hospitality and the service industry are about to lose access to housing pretty shortly here. And one of my friends told me that he's tired of having to feed his kids bacon and bread every night because that's all they have to offer at the food bank. I just don't think it's partisan to put, families first in the district. And I want to know why the bill doesn't include direct stimulus to families when that's really what we need.
Well, Daniel, first of all, I hear you. And to answer your question very directly, and unfortunately, the fact is we Democrats advocated very, very strongly for stimulus checks, and our friends across the aisle are not interested. And that's just the truth. I wish it wasn't so, but what we were able to achieve is many billions of dollars for nutrition. We have about $20 billion for nutrition support. Daniel, I also want you to know that about a week ago, as some of you might remember and some of you saw, there was a photo of a line of thousands of cars in Dallas, Texas, at a food bank. And I saw the picture, which horrified me, of course, but what even horrified me more was the fact that about 40% of those thousands of cars in line had never been to a food bank before. And I went to the Speaker's office, Speaker Pelosi, and I sat with her, and I said that when I saw that photo, I felt an obligation to sit in front of her and represent all the tens or hundreds of thousands of people around the country, including in our own state and our own community, who are waiting in line at food banks to implore that we get this bill passed. And, the truth is it doesn't have stimulus checks, but it does have nutrition support. It has housing assistance, $25 billion for housing and rental assistance. It has educational support and student loan support, significant amount of PPP, which ultimately flows to employees of small businesses, and lots of other and healthcare provider relief funds and other support mechanisms to at least provide aid to those who need it the very most, including enhanced unemployment insurance and $160 billion for states and localities, which also can use some of those monies for support mechanisms. So, like I said earlier, it is not perfect. A lot of things I personally fought for were not included. Some of the things I did have been, and in my estimation, this is the very best we can do in light of the political divisions in Congress. And the fact of the matter is, I'm not even sure this can pass, but we believe it's the best chance we have, and I'm going to get everything I got. And but I want you to all know how much empathy and concern I have for so many who are suffering so much. And when I hear of even one family in our country that is hungry, I'm ashamed. And I think we're a country that must do better, must be more compassionate, and must ensure that our kids have roofs over their head and nutritious food to eat, because it's a responsibility, not just being an American, but being a human being.
Thank you very much, Congressman. I'd like to make a real quick detour and ask another poll question. So quite simply, for everyone that's listening on the phone, you can vote for this poll question by pressing the corresponding number on your keypad. If you're online, you can vote by selecting your response below the streaming player. So here's the poll question. Do you support a nationwide mask mandate to protect others and slow the spread of COVID-19? Press 1 for yes, and press 2 for no. Again, the poll question we're asking right now and looking for your input on, do you support a nationwide mask mandate to protect others and slow the spread of COVID-19? Please press 1 for yes and 2 for no. Going back to the phones, we've got Paul Thompson joining us now. Paul, you're live with Congressman Phillips. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Hey, Dean. Paul with Citizens Climate Lobby. Want to just thank you for bringing people together the way that you do. I've recently gotten involved with a group called Braver Angels, which is working to communicate liberals and conservatives, not trying to change them, just trying to listen and find common ground. And it's been remarkable because they're being successful in bringing very divergent people together and having respectful conversations and building friendships, which I see you doing with the Problem Solvers Caucus. So good for you. And my question is regarding the Problem Solving Caucus. Mm-hmm. Have they talked about, I know COVID is really the first thing to deal with, but climate is so pressing right now, and the impact on the poor and people of color. I'm wondering if there's much conversation about climate and our climate legislation, the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act at the Problem Solvers.
Well, Paul, first of all, nice to hear your voice. And Paul just mentioned a wonderful organization that I would love to call attention to, Braver Angels, which, as Paul so eloquently stated, endeavors to bring people together and bridge the political divide. And if anybody is interested in connecting with Braver Angels, I encourage you to Google them and look at what they do online. In normal times, they literally host dinners where people from very different political perspectives sit down and break bread and get to know each other and generate respect and camaraderie. And that is my mission, and I sure encourage and invite all of you, if you're interested, to look them up, Braver Angels. As for climate change, Paul, and the Problem Solvers Caucus, the answer is yes. Most of us believe on the Problem Solvers Caucus that climate change is not just an existential issue, but it is a national security issue. And the truth be told is the plan that I think is very best to start addressing climate change is the carbon fee and dividend initiative that you mentioned. It was first introduced by Republicans, but I believe it is a market-based, thoughtful, expeditious, and very meaningful approach to starting to provide thoughtful incentives and disincentives to change behavior without being punitive. For those of you who are familiar with the program, it places a price on carbon and returns all the proceeds right to the taxpayers, right to the people that might see a modest increase in gasoline prices. I should also say that based on the significant reduction in gasoline prices over the last 18 months or so, the truth is that even with the carbon fee that was proposed in the original bill, gas prices would still be well below what they were just a couple of years ago. And I think it's also worth saying, Paul, that we recognize at the Problem Solvers Caucus table and in Congress that climate change policy cannot just be domestic policy. The United States has taken steps. We are among the world leaders in starting to reduce our carbon emissions. But if we're going to preserve the planet, we've got to collaborate with our friends and allies around the world. And that means rejoining the Paris Climate Accord and at least being at the table, if not being at the head of the table, to encourage the rest of the world to get on board. And, the truth be told, my friends, Earth will survive. The planet will survive. The question is, will humanity? And if we don't do something to ensure that our children and grandchildren and theirs can live in a clean environment with breathable air, ample water, fresh food, and security, then we've not done our jobs. So we are talking about it. I do believe that the Biden administration will prioritize climate change, and will do so in a way that is unifying, not punitive, and most importantly, leaves a legacy for all of us. So we're going to get to it, Paul.
All right, Congressman, our next question comes from Dallas, who submitted this through Facebook. He wonders, do you remember H.R. 1? Is there any hope of making progress on that bill with a Democrat president and likely Republican Senate?
Well, Dallas, all of you on the call probably know how important I think policies contained in H.R. 1 are for our country. As someone who ran for public office for the first time just 2 years ago, I'm frankly disgusted by what we allow in our country, which is legalized corruption, the flow of special interest money in our politics, the influence, the leverage, the impact that special interests have on members of Congress. Is appalling the amount of time that members of Congress spend raising money, which is now over 10,000 hours per week collectively, and that number is right. 10,000 hours per week is what members of Congress spend raising money. And by the way, who do they raise it from? They raise it from people who have a lot of money, institutions that have a lot of money, special interest groups that have a lot of money, and people expect something in return. That's just the way it works. And H.R. 1 is designed to return the power to people, to voters. It's not rocket science. It's not partisan. It's actually, in my estimation, what our founders wanted, which is an engaged electorate, an electorate that has faith in its elected officials and in its government. And if we aspire to achieve that, I think we have to look at some of the measures in H.R. 1. Many of you who are my age or older will remember that for the better part of recent decades, most presidential campaigns were conducted with public funds. President Reagan won with public resources, didn't have to host fundraisers. And now presidential campaigns raise over $1 billion. In the last 2020 election here at the federal level, House, Senate, and presidential races cost in excess of $14 billion. So to get to the point, Dallas, I don't think, unfortunately, that H.R. 1 stands a chance to pass a Mitch McConnell-led Senate. But there is a chance, depending on what happens in Georgia, that H.R. 1 could stand a chance. But most importantly, there's a growing consensus even amongst my Republican colleagues that in light of this recent election, in light of the fact that so many Americans are concerned about the legitimacy of the most important democratic institution that we must maintain and protect, which is our elections, they recognize that we have to do something to restore faith and trust and clean up the corruption that exists in our politics. So I wish I was more hopeful, but I'm not going to rest, and I think we can improve H.R. 1, and over the coming months, it might have a chance, but certainly over the coming years, we have a responsibility to change how we do things. And that's something I think the Problem Solvers Caucus might play a role on as well.
We're going back to the phones for our next question. Bob Byer from Eden Prairie joins us now. Bob, welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question for Congressman Phillips.
Yes, hey, Congressman Phillips. Hey, hi, how you doing? Thanks for having me today. I own a small business. I'm a restaurant owner, and obviously our industry has been decimated by this pandemic. I saw in the relief bill that was proposed, the 120 billion, or whatever, I think it was 120 billion, was supposed to be allocated to the relief fund in our restaurant industry. Where has that gone, and what help do you have for us? I had to furlough pretty much my whole staff. I have myself, my general manager, and my kitchen manager working right now in the daytime, and I have a couple employees come at night. Like I say, we've been decimated, and we need help now, and we don't seem to be getting that. And the longer we're closed and not able to open for inside business, there's going to be so much more attrition in our industry, and it pains me. I've had this for 15 years. I begged, borrowed, and steal. I didn't steal, but I had to beg I had to use my life savings to buy this place, and it was my American dream. And I'm 63 years old right now, and it's too late for me to start another career. And just wondering what we're going to get done here, if we're going to get something done to help our industry out.
Well, Bob, first of all, I empathize because you might know that I also own some coffee shops. I know the pain firsthand. I know how difficult these times are, how decimating they are to the entire industry. And your words and your story and your voice will be with me tomorrow when I once again begin my advocacy at the crack of dawn to get this done. I want you to know that one of my good friends, Terry Hummel, who owns Gianni's in Wayzata, she and I are in communication regularly during the course of the week on this very subject about advocacy. I speak to restaurateurs all around our district, all around our state, and I've been advocating for the Restaurant Act and the Save Our Stages Act vehemently. In fact, even in this COVID relief plan that we just introduced, I was trying to fall on the sword to include the Restaurants Act as part of the PPP allocation because I recognize restaurants, venues, stages, and gyms, exercise facilities, have been so disproportionately affected by COVID for reasons we all understand. And I believe restaurants employ 15 million people in our country, and so many American dreams like yours that you just referred to. And the good news is this. I know that Governor Walz and a bipartisan effort in the Minnesota legislature is planning to issue or come to a conclusion on a relief program very quickly. And because of some of the mandates affecting restaurants, it is the responsibility of the federal government to provide support. And that is our intention right now, Bob. I promise you that should we get this bill passed, it will afford the opportunity for ample PPP funds. They will be flexible to be used by restaurants. There will be a forgiveness component. We will ensure that it is tax deductible, and do everything I can with you specifically on my mind and so many in the same position to keep the lights on and to live to see another day. There is a chance, I won't say a significant chance, but there is still a chance that we can include the Restaurants Act in a final COVID relief measure. I'm advocating for that right now. It is Senator John Cornyn from Texas, a Republican, who authored the Save Our Stages Act, which is a complementary bill. And I'm advocating every day. So I wish I could promise, but I want you to know that I hear you. And to all of you on the call, there are 5,000 of you on the call right now. And this is a great opportunity to remind you of the impact that all of you can make when you make your dining choices here over the coming weeks and perhaps months. To the extent that you can support our local independent restaurateurs and shops and enterprises, it is not just a wonderful gesture economically. It is literally philanthropy. Philanthropy means love of people. And if we love our neighbors and love our community, this is a great time to support those who are struggling so much. And we want to keep the lights on and live to see another day. So I got you in my mind, Bob. I'll be thinking about you tomorrow, and I promise you I'm not going to rest until we get something done here for you.
So as a reminder, you can keep up with what the congressman is doing in D.C. on your behalf by pressing *6 now to join the congressman's e-newsletter. Again, press *6 to join the congressman's e-newsletter. Right now we're heading out to Maple Grove, and we've got Andrew Gencourt joining us now. Andrew, you're live with Congressman Phillips. Go ahead with your question. Hello,
hey, Andrew.
Hi, sorry about that. I wanted to ask you, multiple questions about COVID, et cetera, but seeing this election, I have to talk about it. I was disgusted the entirety of the entire process. What is being done or being discussed to reform our electoral process so that one man with a mission cannot bring the entire House down? I don't know how to make it any more simple than that, so I apologize, but that's the essence of what I'm asking.
Andrew, I hear you, and I hope we can all agree on this call tonight that more important than anybody's favorite political candidate or any party's victory or policy notion, is the continuity of our country and its democratic institutions and traditions. And that should be a responsibility of all of ours, no matter one's party label. And there's no question that the events of the last number of weeks since the election have been troublesome, have been disappointing, have been dangerous, as evidenced by even some of the Republicans in Georgia who are now literally facing death threats and the most grotesque and obnoxious and horrifying threats to them and their families for simply doing their jobs of counting votes. I can't change the president's disposition or behavior. Nobody in the House and Senate can change his disposition or behavior. But we all, those of us on the call tonight and those of us in our community and throughout the country, can resolve to do our best to reestablish faith in one another and in our system. It has been tested. Our electoral system, our democratic system of the governance has been tested. It has shown some cracks, there's no question. But we are resolute. I think our foundation is strong. I believe the new administration will rebuild many of those institutions that have been decimated in many ways. And for those of you who have concerns about the integrity of this last election, I respect everybody's opinion, but I also believe in fact, and I believe in justice, and I believe in integrity. And as of right now, there has not been one validated example of any fraud to any degree that would have changed any outcome of any election in the country. And by the way, we've had 3 House races that have been decided by less than, I think, 500 votes, one of which was decided by 6 votes in Iowa. Some of you might know that today lawsuits were filed challenging the election results just in the Democratic congressional districts that Democrats won in Minnesota. And I find that heartbreaking, and I find it dangerous, and I find it troublesome that we've reached this point in this country. I can't solve the problem, Andrew. I don't think Washington is going to solve the problem. But I'm going to keep my faith in Americans to solve the problem and to do some soul searching about what matters and how we're going to proceed. And I think that's how we're going to tackle this. But rest assured, I ran for Congress because I believe in integrity and I believe in decency and I believe in putting the country above any singular party issue or policy issue. And that's my mandate. And the good news is I'm speaking with more of my Republican colleagues right now that feel the same. These last few weeks have been very difficult for our country, and I want to see us emerge from this and recognize, perhaps, just like COVID will make us recognize, our responsibilities to one another and to our country. And that's the best I can say right now. There's not any legal action that we can take. We've learned the levers of power in Washington are limited when it comes to a president. And I just want to make sure that no matter who might win the White House in future years, that we're better prepared to protect the very foundations that have led to our success and safety and security and prominence that we now enjoy. So I wish I had a better answer, Andrew, but that's going to lie with all of us when we go to the ballot box.
Our next question comes from Mohammed Jiba in Maple Grove. Mohammed, welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Congressman, for creating this opportunity for us to have this dialogue as Americans in our community and the state and the country as large. Well, my question has to do with health care, affordable health care. America is the world's number one superpower. Now, something I wonder, how come in the 2020, we as Americans haven't had the opportunity to have a public policy that will ensure that we have affordable health care for all Americans? Affordability in the sense that, not just having bills saying that it's affordable care act, but in a true sense. Like, for instance, the Obamacare, I know it helped a lot of additional Americans, or around 20 million, but the intent of that bill did not meet it, was not realized in terms of having all Americans having affordable care act. So, what role are you going to play, or what plans do you have to ensure that we have affordable care and affordable care, health care that will ensure not just by politics, but in a true sense that all Americans will benefit? That I wouldn't have to worry that if I'm sick, I wouldn't be able to pay the 20%, even if I have a health care based on employment, or say a state health care or federal health care. That I'll be worried that I don't have that much. My pocket will only be able to afford to pay the 20%. So what plans?
So Mohammed,
yeah.
And Mohammed, I agree with you. You know, the United States is the most prosperous, most successful, strongest country on earth. I was raised to believe in American exceptionalism, and I think if we truly aspire to be the most exceptional country in the world, we must be a country that ensures that every one of our citizens has access to quality health care that they can afford, that will never put them in a position to bankrupt themselves and their families. It's a simple statement, it's a moral statement, and frankly, it's an achievable statement. The fact of the matter is we spend more than double any country in the world on our per capita healthcare expenses. We have the money in the system, but it's the policies that dictate how care is delivered in our country, how our prescription drugs are priced in our country, and the care delivery model in our country that have to be reformed. And if we do so, I believe we can achieve coverage for everybody. I think the best way to do so, I think the most quick and expeditious way to do so, and the least expensive way to do so, is to do so by expanding into a public option so that people can make a choice. I believe in the freedom to make a choice. I believe in competition to lower the costs and improve quality. And public option accomplishes both. It's possible, and that's something that I believe here during a Biden administration we might be able to achieve, Mohammed. And it starts with some courage, because the fact of the matter is there are a lot of wealthy, vested interests that lobby Washington with millions of dollars, hundreds of people that want to protect the status quo because it makes them a lot of money. And I think it's time that we do a little bit of soul searching and make the moral decision to ensure that everybody has access to care. I believe deeply in the fact that care should be delivered by the nonprofit sector, or even sometimes the for-profit sector, but by the private sector. I do not like to see the national provision of care delivered by the government. That said, I think the government can play a role in the coverage of care, especially as it relates to some of you who might be independent contractors or gig workers who need portability. And I think that's one thing we can do also with a public option. I'm going to be working on that. Many of you have said over the course of my campaigns that healthcare is your number one issue. I served as the board chair of Allina Health System. I know what is working, I know what's not working, and I do know how we can get there. And the Problem Solvers Caucus, once again, I think will be playing a role here in the coming months and years in finding that path forward, Mohammed, so that people can rest comfortably at night knowing that their health care will not bankrupt them. And that's my responsibility.
So quickly, another detour to our third and final poll question. This is where we turn to you, everyone on the call, for your input. So the poll question is, what's your priority for the next COVID-19 relief package? If it's funding for safe elections, please press 1. Unemployment support, please press 2. Small business support, please press 3. Something else, please press 4. Again, this third and final poll question, what's your priority for the next COVID-19 relief package? If it's funding for safe elections, press 1. Unemployment support, press 2. Small business support, press 3. Something else, press 4. Thank you very much, everyone who just participated in that poll. Now we're going back to the phones. We've got Mike Morrell in Shorewood. Mike, welcome to the call. You're live with Representative Phillips.
Hey, Mike.
Thank you so much, Congressman. It's an honor and a privilege to get to chat with you. I've been listening to the conversations all night, and I really, really like and respect your responses, especially the gentleman on HR 1, as well as Bob, who's in the restaurant business. And we're in the small business world also with a couple of media companies, but we're nowhere struggling like the good folks in the restaurant and entertainment folks are. And I appreciate your positions on helping those people. My question comes from the area of the PPA, I beg your pardon, the PPP program. And I'm a little lost, as I think some of my colleagues are, as to where we are exactly with what the IRS may be thinking about in terms of taxation of those funds. Sure. Curious about where you think that project is, that initiative is, and where you think it might, what it might end up. Thank you.
Yeah. First, Mike, thank you so much for your kind words. I do appreciate them. And to your question very directly, I believe, and so do my colleagues, both Democrats and Republicans, that in this next COVID bill, we have to clarify that PPP loans that are forgiven must be tax deductible, because if they're not, that's actually imposing an incremental cost on the very businesses that we're trying to provide relief for. It seems like common sense, but as you all know, common sense is a rare commodity in Washington. But we are very intentional about ensuring that is well defined and doesn't provide an additional burden to small businesses that are already suffering. So rest assured, it's a high priority. I've already ensured that would be included in the language, and my Republican and Democratic friends, both in the House and Senate, appear to be like-minded. So I expect that to be part of any deal that we reach. Absolutely.
All right, our next question comes from Bill DeMoore in Brooklyn Park. Bill, you're live on the call. Go ahead with your question.
Good evening, Congressman Phillips. I really appreciate your work. And it's really in the tradition of Representative Jim Ramstad. I'd like to give a shout out to him and the death recently and all that. But seriously, you are of that ilk, of the ability to reach across the aisle and to help bring about bipartisan support for different types of legislation. Specifically, though, I'd like to ask you, can you cite a time when, and I am a contributor both financially and philosophically to the Problem Solvers, can you cite a specific time when the Problem Solvers have moved legislation that other representatives have also supported, or have moved legislation that other representatives have not supported. So swung some minds to the problem solvers' point of view.
Yeah. Well, Bill, first, thank you again too for your kind words. This is a great opportunity. I'm so glad you mentioned Jim Ramstad. One of my predecessors, a gentleman, a statesman who represented the 3rd District with great integrity and principle for many years, a Republican, of course. And in many ways, I intend to honor his legacy by acting in the same manner. I believe one reason he ultimately left Congress was his dismay about the direction in which it was heading and the lack of thoughtfulness and bipartisanship. And I'm on a mission to restore that. And his loss is a big one for our community. And we intend to honor him here in Congress, both back home. And I ask all of you to think of Jim Ramstad tonight and honor his legacy as well. I think Jim would love the work of the Problem Solvers Caucus. It was very much aligned with his principles. And to answer your question, Bill, we've done a lot. The interesting thing is we don't do it in front of the TV cameras on the spotlight, and we don't tend to take a lot of credit for it. But to give you a few examples, we actually changed the House rules this year. Before Nancy Pelosi was voted in as the Speaker of the House, we negotiated very intensely and intently a set of rules changes that no longer would afford her the exclusive right to decide what bills were brought to the House floor. And many of you know that's how it works in the Senate right now. Mitch McConnell alone decides what goes to the floor. That's the same way it worked in the House. We, the Problem Solvers, negotiated a new rule that allows any bill that has 2/3 support, which makes it bipartisan, to be added to what we call the suspension calendar, which means it receives a vote on the House floor automatically. It sounds like a small change, but it's actually a very big one because it improves the process of the Congress. Bill, we also, President Trump invited 10 of us, 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, I was among them, invited us to the White House in early 2019 during the government shutdown. And we proposed a plan to help get through the shutdown, which he ultimately adopted. And we didn't take much credit for it, and many weren't aware of it. But that's the kind of work that we do every day. We have launched 2 COVID relief frameworks, including one just yesterday, which we believe ultimately will be the bill that may be signed into law by the end of the year. We also, as a caucus, we introduce bills as individual lawmakers, and then we get behind those bills by voting as a block. I couldn't even begin to go through the number of bills that we endorse and work on together as thoughtful colleagues. Part of the issue, I think, is that we have to probably be more communicative about the work we do and let the country know that there is an element of Congress, even if it's just 50 of us, that are actually doing the work that many of you would expect, Democrats and Republicans, and that Americans demand. So thank you for celebrating the Problem Solvers. I also should let you all know that considering the very small majority, the thin majority that Democrats will be maintaining in the House of Representatives, it might be only about 5 seats, the Problem Solvers Caucus becomes a very influential voting bloc. And I can assure all of you that we are going to be very intentional, very thoughtful, and very purposeful about how we go about our work to ensure that bipartisanship becomes the culture of a Congress that really needs it.
So, Congressman,
can we take one more? Maybe take one more
Yep.
question?
Yes, sir. I was just about to say we've got time for just one more, and we've got Kathleen Theoden from Bloomington joining us now. Kathleen, welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question, please.
Sure. Mine goes along the same lines. I've been concerned that Pelosi keeps blocking the stimulus bill if she can't kind of get everything. And I just really think we need to target and get the help to the businesses, to the unemployed, to those who kind of fall in between the cracks. Like I have friends who are hairstylists. Well, they don't qualify for unemployment. Well, they also can't work but at 50% capacity, which is a real issue. And so it just seems like she kind of wouldn't bring anything, or the party would vote so lockstep, it didn't matter what Republicans put forward on any front. And I'm hoping, I'd like to know what your position is going forward. Are you really willing to step up and say, I'm going to vote against Pelosi? There's enough of us to take a stand and say, listen, something's got to give and somebody's got to get some help out. Because even, regular unemployment's just not intended to be a year-long event. That's a pretty small paycheck to go through that long. And I'm fortunate. Yeah. I'm able to work from home, but I have lots of friends who can't. And then if they get COVID and you work in restaurants, or even if you are working minimal hours, you're now cut again.
Well, Kathleen,
yeah.
Your question is a very good one to end the evening with, and you'll understand why I say that. Let me start by saying, first and foremost, that the House of Representatives, led by Speaker Pelosi, has passed a number of COVID relief bills, starting with the CARES Act, of course, and then the HEROES Act, and then a significantly reduced HEROES Act. So we have passed bills. The bills end up on Mitch McConnell's desk, and they don't even get a vote on the Senate floor. So I just want to state the fact that I do believe every leader in the House and Senate is responsible for the lack of action, and that includes Speaker Pelosi. I'm not ashamed to say that, of course. The executive in the White House, the leaders in the Senate and the House have a responsibility to compromise and help people. And that has not happened. I hold each and every one of them accountable. With that said, because it was released in the press here today, I sat down with the Speaker last week, Speaker Pelosi, and I expressed to her that I would only support her as Speaker in the 117th Congress if and only if we pass a bipartisan COVID relief bill that makes its way to the President's desk. So on January 3rd, when we vote for the Speaker, if we pass that bill, I will support her. If we do not, if that does not happen, because I do believe that she does have the influence and wherewithal to ensure that happens. If that does not occur and people do not get the support they need, and small businesses and restaurants, and so many of you on this call don't get the support that you've asked for and deserve, I will not vote for her. And so to answer your question, yeah, I'm willing to fall on the sword. And when I met with her, I did so thinking of every one of you on the call who've expressed your heartbreaking concerns and needs, and so many millions around the country, because I didn't go to Congress to make a career of this. I had a wonderful career before. I'm sick and tired of the partisanship. I'm sick and tired of people who go to Washington for decades and love their job so much they'll do anything to protect themselves at the expense of so many Americans. And I'm willing to fall on the sword, even if it means that I have political punishment for doing so. So you heard it from me. We'll know here in the next few weeks which way that goes, and that's why I'm doing everything I can to ensure that we pass relief for all of you and for our country. So with that, Dirk, I think have we reached the end of our time?
Yes, sir. If you wouldn't mind sharing some closing remarks, I know everyone would appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank all of you. I love doing town halls in person. It's one of the great joys of this job. I'm saddened that I have not been able to do so now for some months, but rest assured, as the vaccine is introduced, if we unite as a country and actually start protecting one another as our neighbors and community members and get through this more quickly and safely, we can be back doing those face-to-face, hopefully sometime next year. And I sure look forward to that day. Once again, I have all of you on my mind: your health, your welfare, your safety, your security, and your optimism. You know, I'm really proud to have grown up in the very community that I now represent here in Minnesota. And so many of you, and many of you on this call have done so much to make Minnesota so wonderful for kids like me growing up to one day serve in Congress representing you. And I just want to thank you, most importantly. It's the honor of a lifetime. And there's a lot of work that has been accomplished, but my goodness, there is so much more to do. And my promise, my heartfelt sincere promise to all of you that I will continue to listen. I will learn something new every day. I will advocate for you. I will accept your criticism and learn from it. And I encourage you to keep sharing your stories and your ideas with me, because that is the best way for me to be a better representative for all of you. I've said a number of times that I am a business owner. I've built businesses from scratch. I've managed businesses. I believe that success should always be shared. I believe business is a means to an end. And small businesses are the lifeblood of our community. And I want you to know I have all of you on my mind. I'm also a father. I'm a son. Some of you know that I lost my own birth father, Artie Pepper, in the Vietnam War. I've lived on both sides of advantage, and I know what my responsibilities are. And I also recognize how devastating the impacts of the pandemic have been for so many of you, and so many Minnesotans and so many Americans. You know, whether it's Moni's Bar and Grill in Maple Plain or Maynard's in Minnetonka, Bob Byers, your restaurant. I want you to know that protecting workers and small business owners and families and individuals who are struggling will always be my highest priority. That's the only reason I am in Congress, and I'm only in Congress because you sent me there, and I will do that as long as you wish for me to continue that work. So in the coming days, I'm going to be introducing additional legislation, I want you to all know, that are going to provide opportunities for a whole of government response to the COVID pandemic. And most of all, I'm going to work with my Republican and Democratic teammates, all of those who are willing to work together on the problem solvers and beyond, and going to be staying connected to our local leaders. I know some of our mayors, both Democrats and Republicans, are on the call tonight. We're all in this together, my friends. We are a family, regardless of our politics. So I just ask that you please keep in touch and that you keep the faith. And I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful that when we get through this, we will be a stronger country, a more compassionate country, and most importantly, a more united country than we ever were before. And rest assured, I'll be here for you. So Godspeed. God bless all of you, and God bless America, my friends. Love to all, health and happiness over these holidays, which I know are difficult, and I look forward to reconnecting in the new year. Thanks, everybody.
So we have reached the end of this evening's live event. Thanks to the thousands of you who took the time to join this conversation. If we were not able to get to your question, we invite you to leave a voicemail after the event. You can also send us an email by going to phillips.house.gov. You can also call our Minnetonka office at 952-656-5176, or reach out to the D.C. office at 202-225-2871. Follow Rep. Phillips on Twitter and Facebook using the handle @RepDeanPhillips. Thank you again for taking part in tonight's Dial In with Dean. We hope you stay healthy and safe and have a wonderful evening.